Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can analyze the mental health and personality factors that may be at work in the life and death of Diana, Princess of Wales. Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. So first I'll look at the background of Diana, and then I'll move to the mental health and personality factors. Diana was born in Sandringham, Norfolk, England, on July 1, 1961. At that time, she was known as the Honorable Diana Frances Spencer. She was raised with two sisters and one brother. A second brother died before Diana was born. The Spencer family was royalty. Her father, John Spencer, was Viscount Althorp, and her mother, Frances Spencer, was Viscountess Althorp. Diana's parents would argue frequently. She was 7 when they divorced. Diana described her childhood as very unstable and very unhappy. In 1975, her father inherited the title of Earl Spencer. After this, Diana was known as Lady Diana. Diana did not perform well in school, although she was active in a number of non-academic interests like ballet, tap dancing, swimming, diving, and playing the piano. In November 1977, when Diana was 16, she met Charles, Prince of Wales. At that time, Charles was dating Lady Sarah, Diana's older sister. In 1980, Charles took an interest in Diana, and they developed a romantic relationship. They became engaged on February 6, 1981. Charles was 13 years older than Diana and had feelings for another woman named Camilla Parker Bowles, who at this time was married to another man. Diana would later report that Charles thought of their relationship as more of a business arrangement and not something related to love. Diana and Charles would be married on July 29, 1981 at St. Paul's Cathedral. There were 600,000 spectators lining the streets to watch the ceremony, and the wedding was viewed on television by 750 million people. It was considered a fairy tale wedding. Diana's dress had a 25-foot train. The couple was transported in a horse-drawn carriage. Despite this, Diana recounted that this was the worst day of her life. So we see a large difference between how people interpreted the event and what she was actually experiencing. I find this interesting because I think part of the excitement about watching an event like that is that people can imagine what Diana was feeling and feel the same way. It's like a vicarious enjoyment. And of course, the whole time along, she was suffering tremendously. So we see some irony there. Diana became pregnant several months later. It was announced in November of 1981. It was reported that Diana fell down the stairs in January of 1982. Later, Diana would admit that she threw herself down the stairs because she was feeling so inadequate. Prince William was born in June of 1982, and Prince Harry was born in September of 1984. The marriage between Charles and Diana was not going well. They both had affairs during the marriage. It's not clear who had the first affair, but it does seem clear that Charles always maintained some type of relationship with Camilla, even if it was not a sexual relationship in the early years of his marriage to Diana. It appears as though Diana had several affairs, and Charles maintained the one affair with Camilla, although Diana suspected Charles had more than one other lover. Charles would later say that he did not resume his relationship with Camilla until 1986, which was after he realized his marriage was irretrievably broken down. Diana and Charles would divorce in August of 1996. As part of the divorce settlement, Diana was paid £17 million and given a salary of £400,000 per year. When she was married to Charles, Diana had been referred to as Her Royal Highness. After the divorce, she was referred to as Diana, Princess of Wales. Interestingly, many people refer to Diana as Princess Diana, which is a title she never actually held. During the time Diana was married to Charles, she was a very active member in a number of charities. She traveled all around the world and met different leaders, and she was relentlessly pursued by people in the media like the paparazzi. These are independent photographers who try to take these pictures and sell them to different media outlets. After the divorce, she continued with altruistic work and remained in public life. She developed a romantic relationship with a surgeon at one point, but the relationship ended in the summer of 1997. After this, she started seeing a man named Dodi Fayed. Diana, Princess of Wales, would die in the early morning on August 31, 1997. She was in an automobile crash that occurred in a tunnel in Paris, France. She was 36 years old. The driver of the car, Henry Paul, was under the influence of alcohol and other substances. He was trying to escape the paparazzi when the collision occurred. He would also die, as would Dodi Fayed. Diana's bodyguard would survive. Now moving to the mental health and personality factors. One of the challenges to figuring out Diana's personality is looking at the difference between how a person really is and how their persona is. Clearly, Diana was a public figure, and it makes sense that she was different in private than she was in public. With this in mind, let's take a look at her potential personality profile. Diana's level of openness to experience was high. She had an appreciation for the arts like dance and music. She was creative, and she experienced emotions intensely. As far as conscientiousness, she was described as hardworking, organized, motivated, and unafraid of hard work. Clearly, there was some evidence of impulsivity and irresponsibility, but on balance, her level of conscientiousness was probably higher than average. Now looking at extroversion, even though she acted more extroverted later in her life, I think overall her level of extroversion was probably below average. She was described as quiet, shy, and a deep thinker. Somebody can be low in extroversion and still appear to be extroverted, like talking in public and attending all the different events that she did. In looking at agreeableness, even though there were certainly moments of low trust, overall I think her level of agreeableness was high. She was altruistic, straightforward, and modest. Now, the last trait is neuroticism. Here we see her level was high. She was depressed, anxious, and did have difficulty resisting temptation at times. Now, as far as mental health, Diana was treated by a few different mental health professionals. One said that she was a very unhappy girl, battling against an oppressive royal family. Others viewed Diana's mental health status as more worrisome. It seems quite likely that Diana had more going on than just very unhappy girl syndrome. She reported that she had bulimia. It was most active during her marriage to Charles. This disorder has a high level of comorbidity with other mental disorders, most notably depression. Over 90% of people with this disorder would also qualify as having depression. Therefore, it would make sense that Diana was depressed as well, but I'm not aware of her formal diagnosis. During that same time period, Diana also harmed herself and attempted suicide several times. It was reported that Diana would have mood swings, going from compassionate and carefree in one moment to sarcastic and insecure in the next. She has been described as egocentric, possessive, unpredictable, motivated by personal considerations, self-indulgent, and manipulative. One of the theories that comes up frequently when talking about Diana is the idea that she had borderline personality disorder or perhaps simply borderline personality features. This is an interesting theory that would explain a lot of the behavior that she exhibited and would be consistent with the other disorders that she was thought to have. Borderline personality disorder is a cluster B personality disorder. It's in the same cluster as antisocial, narcissistic, and histrionic. This is called the dramatic erratic cluster. There are 9 symptom criteria in this disorder. Now, even though there's no way of knowing if she had this disorder or not, we can see if her behavior aligns with the symptoms. It's worth noting, though, that even if there is an alignment, that doesn't mean she had the disorder. Only someone who treated her could have made that determination. So looking at the symptoms, symptom number 1 is the individual exhibits frantic efforts to avoid abandonment. This has been reported, but it's not clear if she actually had this symptom. Number 2, this is an unstable relationship pattern, like a love-hate cycle, so the person moves between idealizing another person and devaluing them. It's not clear if she went back and forth that way, like the love and hate. It's a possibility, but I don't see any real clear evidence that points to that. Now, the third symptom is identity disturbance. This one is difficult to know because what she did was very unusual, right? She moved from being Lady Diana to Diana, Princess of Wales. Most people don't make that type of jump in their life, so it's an uncommon change. I think anyone would struggle with their identity during that type of transition. Now, the fourth symptom is impulsivity in two areas that are potentially self-damaging. Throwing oneself downstairs and some of the other self-harm behavior we see here does seem to align. Symptom number 5 is suicidal behavior. Diana reported this several times. Symptom 6 is affective instability, otherwise known as emotional dysregulation. This was reported several times. Number 7 is a chronic feeling of emptiness. This criterion is interesting because if somebody was depressed, they would likely meet this, so we see the overlap there. Symptom 8 is inappropriate or intense anger or difficulty controlling anger. I'm not sure about this one. If she did have anger problems, she seemed to hide it pretty well, at least most of the time. This brings us to the last symptom, symptom number 9. This is paranoid ideation or severe dissociation. Paranoia was reported as it related to Charles, but Charles was actually cheating, so it's really hard to determine if she was being paranoid or realistic. As we can see, Diana may have had several borderline personality features, but this theory about BPD is challenging in another way. Usually with a personality disorder, there would be symptoms when somebody was an adolescent. Now, maybe that was the case with Diana, but it's really not clear. We don't have a lot of information about borderline symptoms when she was young. The reports that we have about potential borderline characteristics are from after Diana's involvement with Charles. One possibility is that Diana had a number of borderline personality features, but they were not fully expressed until she was put under the stress of being married to Charles and moving to that high-profile life of royalty. This could actually be said of all the disorders that Diana may have had. If she had never met Charles and never moved into that life, perhaps she would have been fine. It might have been the stress combined with her predispositions that led to the onset of the disorders. One thing I find interesting with Diana is that after she was divorced, her functioning appeared to get better. She really seemed to find her way. She embraced her role as a public figure. She was confident. She seemed stronger. I don't know if she was happy. I don't know if things were really better, but they appeared to be better. This is consistent with the idea that her symptom expressions occurred because of stress, like the stress pushed her over the edge, and when the stress was gone, she returned back to having no symptoms. I think that Diana was simply pulled into something that she did not understand. At some level, she probably wanted the life of a princess. She recognized that she would become famous and have other benefits. But at another level, the circumstances under which she became princess were simply too challenging. The relationship with Charles, the public spotlight, the paparazzi, her concerns about her weight, her self-esteem, there were a lot of factors there. Every problem that she had became magnified because of all the scrutiny of the high-profile position. Charles was 13 years older than Diana. He was more experienced in relationships. The royal family, of course, was well established. Their structure is rigid. And here we see Diana, young, naive, and somewhat fragile, being introduced into what can be a vicious and unforgiving environment. It's very tempting to view Diana in a dichotomous fashion. A lot of people think that she was one of the greatest people who ever lived, and therefore they struggle to accept her flaws. Others view Diana as a villain. They believe Charles was a patient, kind, and compassionate hero who tolerated Diana's mood swings for many years. This group has trouble seeing the positive aspects of Diana. The reality is that Diana and all people contain both good and bad characteristics. She was altruistic, kind, charitable, and caring. At the same time, she did struggle with regulating her mood. I think Diana did the best she could under the circumstances, and overall, I believe her legacy is positive. It can be positive without Charles having to be the bad guy. They can both be good people. I think they were both simply in a situation they couldn't handle. The last thing I wanted to discuss was the idea of a royal family in general. Over the years, I've watched different shows, movies, and documentaries about the British royal family. More recently, I saw all the episodes that have been released at this time of The Crown, which is a series on Netflix. It occurs to me that for certain people, particularly those who are modest, it must be difficult to be artificially elevated into royalty. to be called special when they know they're not really special. They know they're just a regular person, but they have to act like they're above being a regular person. It's like this plastic, contrived world where someone's actual skills and abilities don't matter. It's just what family they were born into or who they married that elevates them. There is something destructive about being rewarded in a manner disproportionate to one's abilities, like an imposter effect. They must feel, at times anyway, phony and disingenuous. It would be different if they were elected into their positions or again manifested some incredible skill. But unearned glory creates a lie that is difficult to live. It's like they have to be acting all the time. I imagine that over time, some of the members of the royal family grow uncomfortable with this situation. They attempt to live up to the special role that they have been given, kind of like somebody with no experience who is hired at a chemistry lab. They would be overwhelmed by this, but they could also react by going to school and studying chemistry. They could try to justify the position they have been given. But how many people have an aptitude for chemistry? I guess the moral to the story is, if we're going to force people into chemistry jobs, we cannot complain if they blow things up. Similarly, it's important to have realistic expectations regarding the performance of royalty. I think some members of the royal family succeed in their quest to become special, and others don't. And I think either way is fine. In a sense, to put people in that role in the first place creates a nearly impossible situation for them. So those are my thoughts on Diana, Princess of Wales. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an elucidating dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be interesting. Thanks for watching.